This is The Premise, and I'm your host,
Chad Thompson. Chad Thompson's the host.
I'm the host. I'm Jeniffer Thompson.
And I'm Chad Thompson, the host.
Today on The Premise, Chad and I have the honor of speaking with Gloria Cathcart Robbins, host of the Only One in the Room podcast, and her co-host / producer / boyfriend, Scott Slaughter.
Who I call Hun.
Yeah, who she calls Hun. That's right, which I love.
I say, hi, honey.
Hi. And I love the hats. I love the hats. So we'll get a picture of you two in your hats for our
We're going to send you
listeners.
some hats.
Awesome. So today we're going to get down to the stories behind Scott and Laura's storytelling prowess. So hello, you two, and welcome to The Premise.
Well, hello, you guys, and thank you so much for having us.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you for putting this together.
Yeah. I'm just delighted. And I got to start and tell our readers how I came to know you, Laura, and consequently, how I totally fell in love with you.
Please tell that story.
Tell me more.
Go on.
Yeah, exactly. It was 2018. I was in my living room. I was on the couch and I was on my phone, and I just stumbled across this article in the Huffington Post that you had written. It was your experience as the only Black woman in a sea of women attending a famed writers' conference. And that article just touched me to my core. I just sat there stunned. I was teary-eyed, and I was also really excited because I knew that I had to find you. It just so happened that I was in the process of launching my own writers' festival with my co-host Marnie Friedman here in San Diego, and our mission was to ensure that the San Diego Writers Festival was inclusive to everyone. We wanted to shine a light on the importance of feeling included and heard. And so I knew right then and there that not only did I want to know you, but I had to have you at our event. And not only did you come and share your story on our stage, but you joined our advisory board, and you and Scott drove all the way from LA. And I just want to thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. That was an amazing experience for me. The Writers Festival was so great for a variety of reasons for me. But even prior to that, you know, after you read the article and you contacted me, that was one of the first, probably the most actionable phone calls that I received, or contacts that I received. You know, I did get a lot of messages from a lot of people who connected with the article and enjoyed it. But you actually said, I want to be in the Gloria Cathcart Robbins business, or whatever it was that you said.
Right. Yeah.
And made good on that and brought me in to be part of this inaugural project that you were doing, which turned out to be amazing. And it was so incredibly cool to be part of that process, the planning process. And I was able to create a panel, which is something I had never done before.
And the panel, which was Black Stories Matter, that was your brainchild. And we had 4 amazing people on the stage. And we're going to do it again this year, I believe.
Oh,
and
good.
Yeah, I was talking to our programming director, and I just feel like it was such a beautiful experience to like go from sitting on my couch reading this article of this incredible woman who's a great writer. The article was really well written, and
Thank you.
feeling like I've just felt like drawn to take action, and then it happened. Like, we live in a world that's incredible. I could direct message the stranger, and then suddenly here we are, right? So
right?
That was awesome.
How often does I was just going to say, how often does it like lead to action, as opposed to right? just being like a Twitter rage or a just
almost never
thumbs up or a heart.
Well, for me too. Yeah. It just happened. I think it was kismet. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, that's why I just felt like almost like sparks, like kind of inside of me. Like, oh my gosh, this is an opportunity to, do something really big. And since then, so that was a little over a year ago, because I think I contacted you in December, but it might have been earlier. I know your article came out in October.
It was December. Yeah.
Okay.
It was before the podcast came out.
That's what I was just going to say. So now, your podcast has been out in the world for a year. And The Only One in the Room, it's an incredible and a beautiful experience. And I know we're going to talk a lot about that today, but it's been going gangbusters. You guys have listeners all over the world.
We do. We have listeners in over 87 countries. We actually launched in April of 2019, so it hasn't quite been a year yet. But
that's what I thought. Yeah.
But we did start recording because we record in batches and then release them one at a time. So we started recording almost a year ago.
Okay.
And, we have listeners in all 50 states. Like I said, more than 87 countries. We've had over 70,000 downloads since we launched. And, we're really grateful.
You're changing lives. It's so cool.
Yeah,
really
I guess.
are.
I mean, our lives are changing.
We're
changing each other's lives.
That happens when you launch a podcast together. Chad and I don't know anything about that.
Right.
Well, it begins to teach you. That's what happens. Like we feel like we have a great concept and a great story, and the more people came back, the more we felt responsible to keep it in motion.
Yeah. Before we get into the how and the why of The Only One in the Room, I just want to give a little shout out to part of your intro. There's this part where you say, this podcast is for anyone who has ever felt alone in a room full of people, which is to say this podcast is for everyone.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I think it says it all. And I mean, you talk to so many people from so many different walks of life, but let's tell our listeners a little bit about how you came to launch The Only One in the Room and how you came up with the name. Give us your background story. Yeah.
So, around the time that I wrote that article during the time that I wrote that article for HuffPo, I was in a podcasting class at the Writing Pad here in Los Angeles, and
also Kismet.
Yeah, really. And I just didn't know anything about podcasting and wanted to learn more. And it was a 3-hour class for 5 consecutive Saturdays. And it was way across town. It was almost in San Diego. It wasn't really, but that's what it might as well have been. And, it was super inconvenient. And I kind of wonder why we all had to gather in order to do it. But it was the way the class was laid out. And one of the projects, you had to create a project. Your podcast was a project. And the first thing we had to do was name it. And the article had just come out and was going viral. And a lot of the hashtags were coming back, The Only One in the Room.
Wow.
And so my podcast teacher and I kind of conferred on that and decided that would be the name for my project. And so I went through the class. I learned a lot. And when the culmination of the class was we got to record a trailer at KCRW, which is a local radio station.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And I posted a picture of myself recording the trailer. And I said, recording the trailer for my new podcast, The Only One in the Room, or something like that. And a longtime friend of mine contacted me then. His name is Josh Levine. He has a podcast called the Rebel Radio podcast at Rebel Radio Net. Shout out to Josh.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'd like to be a guest on your podcast.
Wow, cool.
And I was like, I don't know if I'm actually doing a podcast.
Is this real? Yeah. I guess this is real.
Right. And so he kind of convinced me to give it a try. And he said, I have somebody that I'd like you to meet with. Her name's Allison Marino. She has a podcast network. It's all female. It's called Lipstick and Vinyl.
Wow.
I think you guys would really hit it off. So around that time, I turned to Scott. I think Scott and I were watching TV in bed. And I said, if I do this, you'd have to produce it for me. And he kind of squirmed a little. And then he's like, okay, we'll do that together.
I love that you were watching TV in bed. Like, that's a great visual.
We actually do that quite often.
Yeah.
It's one of the treats we get.
We're like that old married couple.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Not quite.
Well, not quite. We're not old or married, but we like them.
We don't want to
say, wait a minute here.
Yeah.
There's no old people involved in this podcast.
No. So anyway, so that was it. We met with Allison. Scott said yes to producing. And then we started working on launching it.
God, I mean, Scott, did you have any idea what you were getting into?
I had no idea. It sounded like a really cool title. So I was like, sure.
You're like, all right, I'll
podcasting and producer sound great. It sounds really interesting.
That's awesome. Well,
but, I knew the idea was important, and we had kind of been looking for something that we could do together. And branding her as a writer, it does seem to be part of that as well. So we just jumped in, and I started saying yes. After squirming a little bit.
After squirming. Yeah. He does everything I don't want to do.
That's my job title.
Yes. So I get to just like totally be the creative. Right. And I do the research and the pre-interviews and all the interview prep. And I get the guests. And he does the website. He does the photographs. He does the what else do you do? You do a lot. The artwork,
the merchandise.
Yeah, he did the hats, logo,
the t-shirts.
and all the merchandise.
Yeah, the website is quite. So I've learned about all that stuff.
Nice.
Kind of kicking and screaming a little bit along the way, but I'm always really proud of it when it's done.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Chad doesn't know.
He does a beautiful job.
Yeah, you really
Chad doesn't know anything about that.
He doesn't know anything about any of this. Yeah.
I was telling Chad before the interview how I was admiring his setup at the Writers Festival. And now I have a similar setup after a year.
Cool.
Yeah.
You mean the AV stuff?
All the AV stuff. And he looked so like honed in. I was like, I want to be like that one day.
And here you are. One day has arrived.
Yeah.
Scott, if someone had told you, I don't know, 10, even 5 years ago, that you'd be the co-host on a podcast where you put yourself out there and you allow yourself to be so emotionally open and vulnerable, would you have believed them?
No, actually, I don't think I knew quite what a podcast was 5 years ago, to be honest.
Well, that's a good point.
Right. And I didn't know what a platform it was for telling stories, for telling narratives. So it seemed like after watching Laura write for a while, and then I saw the storytelling evolvement, and then the podcasting presented itself in a way that it seemed like whatever we got to do to make this happen. We'll try it and see. And we kind of gave it, I don't even know if we gave it a timeline, but we said, let's just go for it.
We said a year.
And then and then people like you were saying all along, like how you admired it and people felt like it was important. And I think that adds weight to what you're doing. So it's just been a yes man kind of thing.
I know it's not fair to choose favorites when it comes to your babies. And I think of the podcast, the episodes as your babies. But can you give us like your top 3 highlights, things that surprised you or changed your outlook in any way?
Well, I think Rebecca Gayheart Dane's episode was definitely the most emotionally challenging.
Totally. Yeah.
She's been a longtime friend of mine as well. And she and I never talked about the accident, where she was driving the car and then killed that young boy. I knew about it. The whole world knew about it. And I knew that everybody had tried to get her to talk about it, in public and in interviews, and she had declined. And so when I kind of approached her about doing it, we went back and forth for quite a few weeks. And I was absolutely like, I'm not going to, I wouldn't ask you to do anything that you wouldn't want to do. But this would be, and I would be a safe space for you to do this. I would take really good care of your story. And even still, Scott and I were not at all sure that she was going to come in and actually talk about it. She came in, but we weren't sure she was going to talk about what happened. And she did. And, it was, no one was breathing, the whole time she was talking. It was just like, I've never been so caught up in the moment and holding my breath. And as soon as she got through the story and started talking about, the peace that she's found in her foundation working with the homeless in downtown Los Angeles, you could feel the release of the tension in the room. And because it's so genuine for her. And the accident was, 19 years ago now, and she's been doing this for 18 years, working with Chrysalis Foundation.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely, that was the hardest one going into. That was the most emotional for me. The second one was Gloria Allred.
Mm-hmm.
She
that
was
one just
connected.
came out too.
Yeah, that one came out in at the end of August.
Oh, well, I just listened to it recently.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was like, I feel like it was just yesterday.
Actually, it came out the first week of September. We did it at the end of August, and I have a friend who did a documentary on her life who offered to connect us very generously for the podcast. And, you know, I chased her to book her for a very long time, and she would say yes, and then she would cancel. And she was
she's a busy lady. Yeah.
Busy and to the point. I watched her, doing other interviews. I listened to her other interviews with podcasts, and I was quite intimidated. And when she finally showed up, it was very similar to Rebecca. I just didn't even know she was going to show up, though. And when she did, it was like no one was breathing. Everybody was on their A game, trying not to do or say anything that might make the interview go left. And I had some.
And it was awesome.
Yeah, and I had a couple of questions that were not controversial, but I needed to ask her about some controversial subjects, and so I was intimidated and I was scared.
But you didn't show it at all. It didn't. That never.
No, she didn't. Did she?
No, not at all.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Oh well, thank you, honey. Yeah, you could tell. You knew.
Yeah, but you couldn't tell if you didn't know you.
He knew, but because he knows you. But but as a listener, we had no idea.
Yeah, I thank you, and then probably my most. I don't know if I can say it's my most enjoyable because so many of them were enjoyable, but the one that was the easiest for me was my writing group partner, Amy Bond, who was the only sex worker turned attorney. That was I know so much about her life because we're in a writing group. We meet monthly and I know her story. She's writing a memoir and it's going to be made into a movie. It's an amazing story. And she came in and told it so beautifully. And it was really just like having a conversation. Yeah. It didn't even feel like an interview to me. What about you, hun?
Yeah.
What are my favorites? I can never do it as elegantly as she did. But, I think
no one asks you to be elegant. Go right ahead.
No. I don't try to be. Of course, Rebecca's was really powerful for sure. I had never met her, and I think I was the most nervous. But I really enjoyed. I kind of like the ones I get through and feel good afterwards. And I think Cookie Johnson.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Magic Johnson's wife was one of the most enjoyable ones for me, just because I thought she was going to show up with an entourage. She had such a story, but yet then she came in and she was so approachable,
nice, yeah,
and so loyal and so honest. And I literally felt like we could have gone to dinner or gone to lunch afterwards, and it would have just been a longer conversation.
Right? Yeah,
and it was a fantastic issue. Tamika Raymond's episode about her son.
Yeah,
Kyle. Yeah, that was another one that literally had her son died in a boating accident when he was 11. And I think emotionally that was one of the that was important to me because I felt like the message we wanted to send was that you could move past this, that it is such a devastating experience that we all fear it. I don't think we even talk about it. And here was Tamika had experienced it, hadn't let go of it, but yet had found space for it. And I think, the idea behind The Only One in the Room is when you listen to it, you feel alone. And when you're when it's over, you feel a part of something.
Yeah. Yeah. You're no longer alone. That's right.
Yeah. And that's what, I think that's really how we're trying to join people. Ironically, the episode scared a lot of people.
Well, the title did.
And we got a lot of feedback of people, parents or mothers who were
afraid to listen
to it. So we ended up really.
We re-released it in September during our season, between our season, our second season and our third season, and really just talked about it and asked people to to kind of give it a chance because
it was
of what Scott said, it is inspiring, and she didn't move past it, but she's moving through it all the time, and the way she talks about her son is pretty amazing. And she's another longtime friend of mine. I've known her since we were in our early 20s, and so I knew her story pretty intimately. But it was yet she had not talked about it to the world yet either.
And when she spoke about it, she almost took on a completely different persona than when she walked into the room.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah,
and then I really enjoyed John Ridley, the director.
The screenwriter director.
Yeah, he was just a lot of fun. Again, he came in. I was really intimidated by this, award-winning writer and director. And I ended up just really enjoying asking him about his family, kind of music he liked, what he liked to do for fun.
Right. Have a real conversation. Right?
Take him out of his normal conversation, which is kind of my thing, especially the bigger they are. It feels like the more human I can get with them, the more comfortable I am with the whole situation. So,
yeah. At what point did you guys realize that this is going to work? Like, you made a good choice?
We haven't realized that yet.
You're not there yet?
It might have been when you opened up this podcast and complimented us. I was like, we're doing pretty good, aren't we?
This is it. We just made it.
We've arrived.
What does success look like? I said that in jest, but I don't know if I'm actually joking. I think we are still giving it a shot. We're going to invest at least 2 years into this and see what happens. There's monetary success, which I think if we're going to measure our podcast with monetary success, we're not going to be successful for a while.
Right.
And then as far as like downloads and listeners as an independent podcast, it's, every download's a triumph,
Right. Yeah, that's so true.
Every listener is a triumph. So
it's like, yay, another listener.
Yeah. I mean, we get great guests. That's amazing. And so, I think we're successful in a variety of ways. We operate in integrity. We keep on message and on brand. We haven't compromised that for the sake of getting anyone or, to promote anything. So that's a mark of success, but I don't know that we've looked at each other and said, yes, this is working.
I think the way I measure success at this point is when somebody comes back to me and has had a real connection with a story. When they're moved, they're moved by it. The same way I envisioned it when before it was told. I think that I see that as all the success in the world. And if we can the more we can recreate that experience, I think the more successful we feel. So that's kind of been the gauge. I think like anybody who gets into podcasting, when you first get into it, it becomes very much like how many people downloaded, how much attention are we getting? And then that wears off because you realize how long a race you're really in, which I think has allowed us to concentrate on the content and the process more than the results.
Yeah, that's very true.
So you mentioned earlier that you were part of a podcasting group.
A class,
lipstick.
Yeah.
Well, not the class,
but
the
network. The network. Yes.
How has that helped your podcast as far as growth?
It's interesting because for so we're the only original podcast that was created with Allison's help for the network. All the other ones she acquired, and basically she sells advertising for them. That's basically what it means for the rest of the podcasts on the network. But for us, we went into kind of a production deal with her, and she brought in Christina Barcy, who is our beloved executive producer, to do the physical production of the podcast. And Allison was kind of like an umbrella for bouncing ideas off and, the creative part of it. And so that's how we launched with that. But the way it continues now is more of, I feel like we just kind of have a community with them. Sorry, I'm getting a note. I'm getting a note here. We're going to shout out Lipstick and Vinyl.
Yeah, we are. Lipstick and Vinyl. It's Allison's company.
I don't have,
give us
I need my glasses to read anything. So I didn't have them on. But no, seriously, shout out Lipstick and Vinyl. Allison Marino's amazing, and she's taken really good care of our product and our brand and allowed us to keep the integrity that I talked about, never asking us to do anything that might compromise it or sacrifice it.
And I'll just add to it real quick. I think one of the things we look for as podcasters is sponsorship, right? We want to see that we're getting some bones along the way. And I think Allison, being close with a company like Allison's has given us opportunity to actually have sponsorship on the program, which makes us feel legit and gives us hope for,
Yeah, and she got a sponsorship from the beginning. From the first episode, yeah. Yeah, we had we had to go back and put it in, but as soon as we launched the trailer, she had advertisers for us.
And I think the thing about that is like, okay, we now are committed. We have to do this, right?
Yeah.
Right.
There's no backing out now.
It's true. It's true.
But it actually adds so much more momentum every time you sign somebody new. And I don't know, sitting down to cut a bunch of sponsorship, like advertising, is pretty fun. It really adds a new level to the creativeness,
Yeah. And I love the way you've chosen to banter with each other, talking about those sponsors. It's great that it's in your voice.
Yeah.
It's in her voice.
It's in my voice. I write them all, but
she's actually, everything I'm saying today, she's actually written out.
Yeah. If he goes off script, I'm hitting him. Yes. No, I do. I write out the copy, but we're going to start doing more kind of spontaneous. It's just sometimes when we're clipped for time, it's easier to have a script because if we don't mention something or we mention too much of something and we go over, then we're in trouble. So,
yeah, right. Well, I asked you a little bit ago about your favorites, and I actually have a favorite that I'd like to talk about if you're okay with that.
Please.
So, Sharoni Little, episode 30.
Oh yeah.
I just fell in love with Sharoni. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Sharoni,
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
But yes, so you fell in love with her?
Yeah. I mean, her story was so inspirational, and she was just so open and honest. And I just loved her voice in every way. And, for our listeners, she was a single mom raising 2 boys, and, she managed to get her doctorate and pay attention to her professional career and make that important in her life, as well as raise 2 boys. But I also want to give a shout out to her because she has a book coming out this year, I believe, The Perpetual Surveillance of Black Men, which I plan to buy.
Yes, me too.
I'm really excited about it.
I'm really excited. She has 2 books coming out.
She does. What's the other one?
There's one From Diapers to Dissertations.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
And then and she's incredible. I'm so glad that she's your favorite, and I'm going to make sure she listens to this so she can hear it.
Well, we're going to have to get her to come down to the Writers' Festival.
Well, that's what I was thinking. She will. She'll totally come down. And, her boys, raising 2 boys is one thing. She raised twin boys.
Yeah,
which is a whole nother thing. My boys were a year apart, and that was really hard, but it's not quite the same as raising twins.
Yeah.
On your own.
I can imagine.
So, yeah, definitely shout out to Sharoni. Yes.
Sharoni.
My Sharoni.
She was so
I was going to stay away from that.
But
No, bring it.
You can edit that out later.
Yeah. No, don't.
Sharoni. Laura sings a song for that.
I just did it.
Yeah.
That's it, though. What were you going to say, hon?
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say she was so fun because she's so smart. She is
so smart. Oh my God,
so lovely to talk to. She really listens to everything and responds in a way that, I think I said on the show, it makes you want to be a part of the conversation. And not many people are doing that these days.
Yeah.
Well, and, going back to the perpetual surveillance of Black men, she's helping to start and continue the conversation that's so important. I mean, she was talking about this moment in the podcast where she said, how Black men and other people who feel othered are surveilled, and basically how they're under this sense of constant watch, and, and how that changes your innate behavior. And there was this moment where she said, when my boys go out at night, I always tell them, make sure you have your license out, make sure your hands are visible. And, as a listener, my heart was just breaking because, that story needs to be heard on such a large scale. And then the only way we're going to make change in this country and be reminded that we need greater empathy is to hear stories like Sharani's. So that well for said. Me was like really, I just loved that episode. In fact, I'd listened to it twice because I just, love her voice and like her intelligence and, everything about her. She's a mover and a shaker. And the two of you met you were both
on the board board. Yeah, our kids went to the same school, the Buckley School, which is in Sherman Oaks. It's a K through 12. And I was on the board of the school, and we were looking for new board members. I was determined to have another Black woman because I was, right. of course, the only Black person right. on the board at the time. And I found her. We became friends over the summer in the gym with basketball practice.
Oh, wow.
And cool. I was like,
hey, I have a job for you.
Yes. I was like, you have to come. Well, actually you can't do that when you're on the board. There's a committee that does that. So I had to go back to them and recommend her, and then had to be voted on. And then they approached her. So, it's a whole thing, but she said, yes, thank goodness. And then we served on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee as co-chairs for a number of years together. And I fell in love with her too. I don't know what I would have done without her during that time. I learned so much from her. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that experience of, being in Sherman Oaks in a mostly white school for, you as a parent, and you have two boys and you were a single mom as well. Isn't that right?
I was for part of the time. Yeah. I mean, my husband and my ex-husband and I got divorced 11 years ago, and my kids are 20 and 21 now. So they were for probably the first major part of their elementary school, if equivalent. We were together. And then like around junior high school, he and I were divorced. So I actually honestly have never felt like a single mom because my ex-husband and I have parented them together.
Nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a real gift.
It is a real gift. It is a real gift. However, he's white. And so my kids are mixed race, but they look like they're Black. And
you have beautiful boys, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I think so too.
They're very handsome.
They are. And that experience there was just an extension of all the other only oneness that I had experienced all my life. I know very well how to do it. I'm very well versed at acclimating and code switching and adjusting, and I do it without thinking about it. It's automated. And yet it is exhausting, especially because my children were involved, and anything that involves my children is emotional for me. So to have to consistently advocate for them to have an equal space, an equal playing field and a level space in which to participate and learn and grow was exhausting. And to do it alone is very lonely,
When I first met you, you talked a lot about equity. Yeah. And I really, that really resonated with me. And the fact that you've always been an advocate for equity, I think that comes from the fact that you've had to navigate this space. Yeah. And to find a way for your boys to navigate it and to flourish in this world.
And, and equity really just means that each child has an equal chance to embrace and learn from and grow with the same opportunities that are available to everyone. And just because a child is in an environment doesn't mean that he has an equal chance, or she has an equal chance, or they have an equal chance. There needs to be attention paid to that to ensure it. And that's what equity means. Like my kids both had, my older son has really severe dyslexia. And, written assessments were not an accurate assessment of of what he knows or what he knew.
Right.
So for him to get a reader to read him his tests so that he could then either speak back the answers or write them out, that leveled the playing field for him. That created equity for him. Then he could be judged the way, and what he knew, right? If he didn't know it, he didn't know it. Yeah. But to judge him without properly assessing what he knew was unfair. So that's the kind of thing I fought for.
Absolutely. And that's so important, because how many kids go through life with that same disadvantage, but their parents don't even know it's possible to ask for that kind of help. They're just like, well, this is your lot in life. This is what you get.
Yeah.
My little sister was and is dyslexic, and she really struggled. In fact, she didn't do well because of it. It was a time when we didn't have that kind of equity. Yeah.
And learning differences are one of the things that we try to provide an equal space for at the board level. I'm still on the board. My kids, good. Long gone.
But you still have work to do. Yeah,
I do. I have a meeting next week there.
And ruling with an iron fist.
Nice. Yes. So I'm going to come back to the two of you. I know your relationship origin story, which, by the way, was an incredible bonus episode, how we met in rehab and fell in love. I mean, the title alone, you must have gotten a lot of comments on that. Like, what? Wait, what?
I think a lot of endearment. People were like, oh.
Yeah, I was.
Sense. Yeah.
But so it came out December 24th, 2019. Yes. And I'm not going to get into your personal story here, mainly because I want listeners to just go listen to it. But I got to say, it was awesome. And at the end of that episode, I was in tears. That was your fault, Scott.
Yes, it was.
You're welcome.
And and shout out to Dr. Troy Byer. Is that right?
Right? Yes. She killed it. I love her. She killed it.
She did an incredible job interviewing you two. And I mean, that was real. You really went there.
Mm-hmm.
How was that for you, having the tables turned on your own show?
I really liked it. I did.
That's cool. I like that answer.
We've told our story a lot. We've had a lot of people in our lives that we find that it's important that they understand our story and how we met and what it's based in. But it's different when somebody asks you questions on air about it, and you give equal space. And Troy sees us, I think, from the beginning. She's really admired what we have, and so she had a sense of curiosity and respect, and we kept calling her doctor, which I think elevated her in the room a little.
She was so good. She has such good questions. But you know what else that I really liked about her was she brought understanding and some, she sort of educated you about, like your love language, for example.
Yes.
And I thought that was really cool and kind of empowering too. It was pretty neat.
So, she was wonderful. Having an episode that kind of gave our origin story and was a little bit more personal about Scott and I was something that Scott had been wanting to do for a really long time, and I had been putting it off.
Interesting.
And he was just really, it's interesting to see the feedback that he gets versus the feedback that I get, and a lot of the feedback that he was getting was that people loved our story. And a lot of the feedback that I was getting was that people just loved the stories, like either the stories I was writing. It didn't feel as personal. It's not like I love your story about, I love the story about, whatever it was that I wrote about. My ex-husband married my friend and now they have a baby. Like, people love that story.
Right.
But it doesn't come across as being as personal. So he was hearing over and over again, we want to hear more about your story. And I just didn't know if people really cared.
Did it also, though, I mean, Laura, were you afraid to put that out there on the podcast and turn it into something about you instead of, the people that you were highlighting? Was there a fear there?
I don't know if I would call it a fear. I think that I just wanted to be really smart about how we presented ourselves. And I just wasn't sure that would be something that would be smart to do at this time. I knew it was something that we should do eventually, but I just didn't know. I was trying to be strategic. And then the way it came about, it seemed really organic and it seemed like it was the right time. And, we wanted to do something with Troy anyway, because she was our second episode ever
Right.
And therefore possibly not as much listened to as some of the other episodes. And her story is so incredible. And she and I were actually pregnant with our oldest together. Like,
right.
And she's another one that I've known since I was in my 20s.
You've surrounded yourself unknowingly with your future podcast guests. Good job.
I sure did.
She is incredibly
resourceful and connected. Yes. I have a large resource of people.
But you have so much heart, and that word equity kind of comes back into it. I think you surround yourself with people who are like-minded and who are going, navigating the same waters and going through life with the same purpose, right?
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that all these powerful women. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it was just it was perfect to have her come back and do that interview and to release it on Christmas Eve. Just, for
that was cool,
as a gift,
by the way. A little gift. Yeah, it felt like a gift.
It was a gift for Scott.
Yeah, well, her favorite movie is Love Actually, so I thought we'd put a little romance into it.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
Favorite holiday movie.
It's my favorite holiday movie. I know, Chad. But wait, check this out, Chad.
I feel you, Chad.
Scott took me and my mom to see Love Actually live for Christmas this year.
Really?
And sat in the middle of us.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's actually
Kiss
really
ass.
good. No, I've just broken down over the years. It's now one of my favorite. I'm sitting there watching the movie thinking, I don't know if there's a better Christmas movie out there.
Yeah. You love it, right?
Yeah. Die Hard.
Die Hard's really good too.
I'm so done with the Die Hard.
Yeah, there's no Die Hard live.
No, there isn't.
How about Gremlins 2? Also a Christmas movie.
I can get down with the Gremlin.
I didn't see that. Oh, those are the little creatures, right?
I didn't
see any of those. Yeah.
Chad looked at me. He's like, "What? You haven't seen Gremlins 2?" I'm like, I know. I'm sorry. But yeah, I would say Love Actually is right up there for me. I loved that movie.
Yeah. I think I also felt like it was important for people who were listening, because what we were noticing throughout the year is that we're getting a lot of people coming back over and over. And, Laura and I will talk a little bit about us in a way that has no backstory. And I just felt it would be a nice way for our audience to get to know us a little better and understand.
Yeah, get the backstory.
Yeah, get the backstory of why this thing came together. Not just two people bought a Yeti mic and said, let's do this.
But that's part of it too, right? Well, I think that, that episode is going to be a Netflix series in 3 years. I totally, as it was coming together in the moment, I kind of don't want to reveal it to the listeners, but just this one moment where Scott showed up on your doorstep and you reached out and hugged him and said, okay, this is my man. I was like, yes, right? That moment in the movie where the hero's journey where it's going to happen. They're going to make it. Yeah.
And it gets it's a good ending. You're rooting for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I was totally rooting for you.
It feels like we need more of that these days too, right? The
Don't
good ending.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to hear about the muck and the mud and the blood. Not necessarily in that order, but we also need the inspiration and the good ending. We need hope.
Right.
We need hope, I think is what it boils down to.
Hope. Yeah. That's right. That is so true.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you what has been your biggest challenge in this journey?
In the podcasting journey?
Yeah, and the podcasting journey, and that may have to do with just keeping your relationship solid. I mean, just in life, in the journey of the podcast.
I think probably, and I may be speaking for both of us here, is that I am very satisfied while working. Right. I get up and my mind is going, and I get right into my office and start working on my whatever I'm working on, the research or the writing or whatever. And I'm, while I'm doing the podcast, I'm also writing articles. I have another one coming out in HuffPo on the 20th of this month.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just trying to keep as much content out there as possible. So it's a lot of work, and the work, the way I work, I can kind of do it all day, every day. Not literally all day. I take breaks, but I'll just go back in my office and continue working. And Scott Scott is that, like I said in the episode, he is a stop and smell the roses guy.
Right.
And we were literally driving home yesterday and he's stopped at a stop sign. And I'm like, what? Like, why are you still here? And there was a tree in front of us that was changing colors and he was admiring it. And that kind of push-pull with us. I'm, very type A, and I don't know what type you are.
Yeah, I'm very in the moment.
You're a type in the moment. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge of working together. But it's also, because otherwise, if he weren't doing this with me, I'd be busy without him. And I think that would be much harder for our relationship.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of the same with Chad and I get that. I don't know about you, but sometimes we'll be at dinner and I find us talking about deadlines and work. And how do you guys keep the topic away from work? How do you ensure that it's
usually I protest.
Yeah.
You protest.
Well, that doesn't sound familiar at all.
Right.
It's a dead protest.
Midnight Jennifer's going on about something or another that happened in the office. I'm like, can we just
we're still talking
give
about
it a
that.
rest?
Yeah, I don't know about you, Chad. I think for me, I think one of the things that is probably the hardest thing. Like I have a tendency to want to equate time together as work time or personal time. And they don't.
You want to divide it?
Yeah, I want a division between the two. They don't cross lines for me. And Laura's very happy being right next to my, so I'm
parallel play.
Yeah, parallel play. So I'm trying to adapt myself to that idea that parallel play, like work is parallel play. But I do love just being with her without deadlines or the phone or a post on Instagram or look how many likes we got or, it's
not like work is entirely unfun.
No. It's actually just work to be creative. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of his love languages. It's quality time. That's his number one.
Yeah.
And mine is acts of service.
They conflict a little.
So if he brings me a cinnamon roll while I'm working,
it's like you're that's it, right?
That's it. That's all I need.
Well, I think the confusion comes when I added a bunch of pictures for something and she sees that as an act of service. And I'm like, that's just me working.
Yeah. But it's great.
So we're trying to define that. We're trying to make that. And we try to exclude some time each year, each month or two where we just have time for one another, where we kind of put everything aside.
We do.
Good.
We go off the grid.
You have to give yourself boundaries.
Yeah.
I don't know. We went to the mountains and I still brought recording gear. So
that's true.
I don't know if I'm very good at that.
Yeah. He hiked 19 miles up into the mountains.
Oh, that's awesome.
Gear. I was like, wow, Chad. It was,
wow.
You really want to carry all that? We need water too. Actually, there was water at the source. So
there you go.
I have to say, Chad and I have been married 20 years. We've been in business together for 16 years.
Ugh.
I know, it's crazy. I personally feel like being in business has cemented our intimacy. It has made our relationship stronger because we do share so many commonalities. We have the same goals. We have the same day. We have the same
exasperations
as well. Yeah, I might be exasperating sometimes, but I don't know. I feel like because we've had the honor of working together, it's really helped our relationship. And I see that it's kind of I don't know, it's such a special thing to have the kind of relationship that you can work together and still love each other at the end of the day.
I completely agree. And, it's something that in the 12-step program that Scott and I are in, there's a process by which you guide other people through it. And I happen to be guiding several women through the 12-step process. And one of the things I caution them about, especially the ones that are married or kind of, or I had been cautioning about is working with their spouses. And I was like, I think you should probably keep that separate. But I didn't have any experience with that. And now that I do, I will probably change my tune, not like encouraging it, but taking it like on a case by case basis, because for us, I echo your sentiment. It is absolutely it's part of the intimacy for us, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm learning it. And I really appreciate, Jennifer, you saying that it's if I can just shift my perception on it a little bit. And when I do shift my perception on it, I do find that we are very fortunate and lucky to be able to share the same vision on something together.
Well, and let's be clear too, it's not like you have a car lot, right? I mean,
Right.
What the hell does that mean?
Well, what I mean is like if we were going and selling cars every day,
It'd be
used
different.
cars.
Yeah.
We're doing something that I think is inspiring and changing the world. And so the beauty of the very nature of the job itself, this type of a podcast, I mean, the only one in the room, really, it's incredible, the people you talk to. And each time you interview someone, I imagine that you both change just a little bit for the better.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you get to do that together. I mean, what a beautiful journey. And for Chad and I mean, we work with, Monkey See Media. We work with authors and people who are passionate about something and they want to change the world, and we get to help facilitate that. So, we're doing something beautiful. So I guess I just want to say to our listeners, if you plan on going and opening a used car lot, it might not be a great experience, but I don't know, maybe it will be. Who am I to say, right?
Right. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. You'd let us know, right? Listener, just let us know.
I'd come buy a car from you. I don't know about it.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to, never mind. I was going to say, we'll see again. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about used cars on the next time that we meet. Laura,
Yes.
what did you have for breakfast today?
Actually, my first meal, I was doing intermittent fasting today.
Oh, you were.
My first meal was at 2:00 and I had 3 tacos.
Now, our listeners are like, why did she ask that question? So I love how you ask people, the first thing you ask them is what they had for breakfast. So talk to us about how you came to decide to ask your guests what they had for breakfast, why you made that choice, and how it's been.
Well, thank you for asking that. It actually originated in my podcasting class. When we did the trailer, Anna Scott, shout out to her. She's the host of There Goes the Neighborhood for KPRW. She asked us each as a kind of mic check question what we had for breakfast, because we were really unfamiliar with talking on a mic. And so I got to listen to each person in the class give their breakfast for the day. And so it was just natural for me to do it when I did the first interview. I just did what she had taught me to do.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we did that for our first 2 seasons. You'll see in season 4, which starts on January 14th. I don't know when this will air, but season 4 is #enlightenment. It's a whole season of men. Season 3 was a whole season of women. We ask a different question. And then in season 5, we ask a different icebreaker question. So you'll see.
We're shaking it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
And it always catches people off guard.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. It's such a good
why
icebreaker.
are you asking me that?
Yeah, breakfast.
What do you want to know?
Caught me off guard.
Yeah. Chad looked at me like, wait, what?
What?
Jennifer's listening then.
She is.
Yes, she
Totally
is.
listening. Shout out to Jennifer.
So I don't know if you guys have enough time to read, but I want to ask you, have there been any incredible books that you've read lately, or any movies that you've seen that have really touched you that you want to share with our
Other
listeners?
than Love Actually.
Nice job, Chad.
Well, right now, so I read a lot, but I read the books that our guests have written.
Sure.
And I read them as part of my research. And right now, I'm reading Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker.
Okay.
It was just interviewed in the New York Sunday Times, and Time Magazine just did a big piece on her. And she has a magazine called The Temper that I'm also a contributor for.
I saw it. Yeah.
It's a recovery magazine, and she's an amazing writer. I'm reading her book right now.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
And just really quickly, we see movies every single weekend, sometimes 2 a weekend. So the one we love the most, I think, for the last couple weeks was 1917. Like, that really blew us away. You guys are silent.
No, yeah, I was like, I don't. I haven't even heard of it.
It was one of those ones I was absolutely like, oh, great, another World War I movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm into it.
Yeah.
And then I was just blown away by how they did it.
Sam Mendes directed it. It's one of those movies that's almost one single shot, the whole film.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's almost entirely in the trenches. And it sounds like it would put me to sleep. It sounds terrible. It's incredible.
It really is.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really
is it still in the theaters?
Oh, yeah. It just came out.
It just won some Golden Globe Awards.
It won. Yeah, he won Best Picture.
Best Picture.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. So you guys actually go to the theater to see movies.
We go to the theater every weekend.
It's one of our non-negotiables.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you.
We have a few. We work out together. We play tennis together. We go to the movies. Okay, sorry.
Nice. No. Tell us your list. Yeah. So you work out together.
We go to the movies together. We play tennis together.
Nice.
Yeah. Every week.
That's great. That's great. I like that you have non-negotiables.
Yes. They're important for me. And Scotty just got out a book that he loves.
Oh, you were asking about books. I don't read as much as Laura, but a book called Proof of Heaven by Eben Alexander has been something that's been, it's a journey of a person who has a near-death experience and talks about it. He's actually a neuroscientist. So.
Oh, wow. Awesome. That sounds fabulous.
It's old literature. We actually wanted to try to get him on the show.
I tried.
Well,
he's been tough to get.
Well, he's not here.
Happen.
We only do our interviews in person. He's just not anywhere near here. So
right. It'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah, it was a non-starter, but it would have been great.
I think that it'll happen.
Okay.
It's just going to be down the road.
We'll put it into the universe.
Yeah, you just put it out there and it's going to happen. Yeah, I think anything is always possible if you want it bad enough. And I know you do. Laura, you're working on a book right now, aren't you?
Yes.
Do you want to? Yes. Well, I know you're so busy finding the time to write, but do you want to talk about it?
No, just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Hey, that's totally fair.
Just really quickly, I'm working on a book that is about the time that I filed for divorce to the time that my ex-husband left the house, and it's called The Opposite of Engaged. Because that's
great.
When it is the opposite of being engaged. Is you're engaged to be divorced.
Yeah.
And there was a variety of things from me having grand mal withdrawal seizures in February of 2008 to meeting Scott in treatment in July of 2008 to getting sober to finding out about my friend dating my husband. All that stuff happened in that very short period of time. So it is a book about that. It was a book about a much longer period of my life before. So now I've taken everything apart and I'm redoing my book proposal. That's why you heard me sigh.
Oh,
but it's going to be better.
To see it.
Yeah.
Well, if you have beta readers, I'd like to raise my hand.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I think it's going to be better. I think this in between time, she's discovering a lot about her writing and her journey. So memoirs. It happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. And memoir is so important right now, telling our stories. I think that is part of how we can make people feel like they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a lot of sense for you to tell your story in a memoir format. So I'm excited to hear that.
Thank you. Me too.
What are your goals for this year, you two? Like, what do you hope to have accomplished at the end of 2020?
We should do our intentions right now.
Jeez, we just started this year.
I know we just started, but I know they have goals because I know these two.
I have a few speaking engagements this year that I'm excited about. Scott's girlfriend when he was 12 from University of Richmond has invited me to come and speak to the students at the University of Richmond and the faculty. Scott's going to come too and be a part of the Q&A.
Awesome.
And then I'm going to be doing a panel at Podcast Movement called Getting Your Guest to Say Yes, which is exciting.
Yay. Yeah.
I am the opening keynote speaker for Shameless MomCon in Seattle. Shout out to Sarah Dean, who was a season 3 guest. And she has a Shameless Mom Academy, which is her podcast. And then I'm going to be coming down to you guys too, and
Yay,
doing whatever
April
I'm doing
4th.
with you, which is really exciting. And I would say that I would like to do more speaking engagements. That's one of my goals. I would really like to get that book proposal done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one of our overall goals for the podcast, and you can correct me on this, hon,
very rarely,
is that we would like to
wise man.
I heard that. Be able to bring in more stories rather than name recognition and followers, guests that have just like incredible stories and not have to worry so much about who they are or how many people are following them.
Right.
And that's something that we've been working on for a while, but we're not able to entirely let go of yet because we're still trying, like I said, trying to get the podcast off the ground in that deadlift. But if we're able to, it would be amazing just to curate stories, just the stories that we want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I'm just trying to try. My goal is to keep up with all that.
Don't fall behind.
No, I would really. I think also we've talked a little bit about maybe trying another type of storytelling with a different style of podcast. Maybe some true crime kind of ideas and just tell stories. I think we just want to keep telling stories in a way that intrigue people and attract people. I think the only one in the room is our baby, and we'd really like to find a way to have it sustain itself, so we didn't have to, so we could be more like she said, create more content, go after stories, and not have to promote so much. And have
it takes a lot of
content.
Energy, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it takes a lot of resources.
A lot of resources, and it's why I'm on my phone in bed at night instead of watching TV with him. I'm, checking out social media to make sure I posted everything I'm supposed to post, and keep the feeds going and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not stuff I enjoy. That part I do not enjoy at all.
Mm-hmm. But it's like that necessary evil.
Absolutely.
Keep it going.
Yeah.
Well, I feel you on that one. Well, you guys do an incredible job though of staying connected with your audience on social and, always communicating and putting it out there. So, hats off to everything that you've accomplished.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been so great.
I do want to let listeners know how they can find you, how they can find the podcast, and how they can follow you on social. So if you can just give us some details real quick.
The one thing about our podcast that you brought up during the interview, which I think is really cool, is that you can go into the library and pick out a story from any point of reference. And it's an evergreen library. It's like a library of books where none of the stories get old. And you can find all of those on our website at www.theonlyonepod.com. And that has all of Laura's information about her writing, her publications, all the guest stories, and access to all the actual interviews on that website.
And on Facebook, he's Scott Slaughter, and I'm Laura Cathcart Robbins. I have a public page and a private page, and we have the Only One in the Room podcast page, and we have a Facebook group, which is really exciting. I'm trying to grow it to 1,000 members. So whoever's listening, please ask to join the group. You only have to answer 2 questions, which is, what do I call Scott on the podcast? That is Hun. And list your favorite episode, and you're in.
Nice. Yeah. That's cool. Good for you.
Thanks, Hun.
I'll meet all you listeners over there.
Yes, please.
That's cool. Well, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm honored, delighted, and just it's been so much fun talking to both of you.
You're a wonderful interviewer.
You really are, Jennifer. I'm super impressed. Both and Chad, you're like the perfect kind of sarcastic, dry insert.
I knew that's exactly what you were going to say too.
No,
you've been found
great.
out.
It's
Chad,
great.
I know that none of this would have happened without you.
That's right, Chad.
That is true.
Yes.
So true. You know how true. Most people don't.
We could have had a whole conversation about that, huh, Chad? Like, the unknown hero.
The only ones in the room.
Right.
That's right.
Are you an author with a story to tell? but you're just not sure how to get that story out?
Guess what? You don't have to do it alone. Marnie Friedman is an incredible writing coach. She offers personalized support and expertise to guide you from a kernel of an idea to completion. Visit marniefriedman.com to learn more. That's MarniFriedman.com.
This episode is brought to you by Monkey See Media, a small boutique design firm offering award-winning websites, book cover designs, book trailers, and photography services.
And full disclosure, we love what we do. Chad and I founded Monkey See Media in 2004, and we're still going strong.
Visit monkeycmedia.com. That's MONKEY, the letter C, media.com to see how we can help you promote your book, build a powerful online presence.
What else you got, Chad?
Let's see. We've got the San Diego Writers Festival. There are many writers. And they're a proud sponsor of our Premise podcast as well.
And it's going to be awesome. This year's keynote is Scott Gimple. He's the head writer of The Walking Dead. And the festival is free. It's open to the public. There's going to be educational panels and workshops, famous authors, up-and-coming authors, kids and teen programming, and live theater performances. Oh, and there's music. Oh, and there's food.
Oh, but wait, there's more. You also get a copy of our home game.
You're silly. But wait, there is more. There will be literary agents taking pitches from authors looking to get their books published. The festival is about building community and celebrating storytelling of all kinds. It's happening April 4th, 2020 at the Coronado Public Library.